Hello, educators. Welcome to the Writers Workshop and welcome back if you've been here before. In these short videos, I take you into a few different ways that you can add more choice and voice in your writing curriculum, especially for middle and secondary classrooms or high school classrooms. And for me, I'm just a former classroom teacher of 20 some years, and I'm currently a teacher educator at Oklahoma State University. And I've just gathered my materials and resources for you to support the work that you're already doing. I know not every teacher has had a teaching writing course, and we have more emergency certified teachers of late to help with this nationwide teacher shortage. So hopefully some of these materials will be of use to you. So today we're going to talk about grading with standards. Grading was really one of the hardest things for me as a teacher because I always felt like when it came time to collecting students' papers and grading them, I felt like I was shifting grades or changing my mind. It just felt very arbitrary to me, especially if someone turned in a whole paper and then I had to give them one grade. And it was hard to explain to them or their families the pieces that needed work or were missing. And it was also difficult to make time to grade in that way as well. I'm taking home stacks of papers. So in this tutorial, I just want to show you that you can grade along the way. Grade along the way. Don't wait till it's over. Don't wait till the paper's done. So if you are teaching the writing process, so let's just say students are writing a personal narrative and they've written a great lead. Maybe it's a flashback, maybe it's dialogue, maybe it's a sensory paragraph. And they've written it a couple different ways and have decided that they want to do it with a flashback with dialogue. You've read their lead. They understand that the lead has to introduce setting, characters, maybe a conflict. And they can explain this to you, and they've done it. You can put this into the gradebook as the introduction is complete. You've seen it, it's good. They know how to write an introduction to a narrative. Done. When it comes time to teaching them how to add a scene with dialogue, and you've taught them how to do the dialogue, and they have gestures and facial expressions, and the characters are interacting, and the students can explain to you that this is propelling the plot forward, but because this interaction caused a conflict, right? They've written their dialogue, they've written a scene. They can talk about how it's propelled the plot. You can add this to your gradebook as a dialogue scene done. When it's done, you don't have to wait till it's all over and they submit the final draft. They understand that standard of dialogue or character interaction. When the students are doing peer review with each other, so see that video about peer conferencing, this is part of the revision process. They've done the peer review. You've seen the recording. You've seen them making revisions. You have evidence of this. You can put it in the gradebook as meeting that standard of peer review. So as you go, you grade because they've met the standard. Now, how many points you give, this is wild to me. And I think the points are the whole, we want to make sure it's equitable or it doesn't mess up with their average, or, this is something that you probably have to decide in your own school or your classroom. But I just make them all the same amount. That's all. Now, let's say the student has done the dialogue, but the punctuation is all over the place. What you can do is tell the student that they need to make revisions. And maybe in your gradebook, you write a note, I checked it and they need revisions. And so then they can revise and show it to you, and then you can change the grade, something like that. So let me show you a little bit how this works. So we're going to go back to, maybe you have a checklist for a specific genre or mode of writing. So here's two modes, informational and argument. They all have a beginning, middle, and end. There's usually some sort of craft moves or techniques, some sort of requirement of word length. These are the kind of things that you teach when they're doing it. So you already have a sense of these are the different parts. These are also related to the different standards of the argument, right? An effective conclusion, an engaging lead, text evidence, research, support. Each one of these can be a different standard that you teach and that you're assessing. Same with narrative or poetry. you want to talk about craft or organization or text structure or stanzas, the same kind of thing. Whatever is sort of in here, you can kind of connect back to the standards for your state, which typically have to do with having some sort of beginning, middle, end, some craft moves, some text structure. There's a revision process, there's a publishing process, there's an editing process, there's a grammar process. Each one of those things is something different. So to give students an entire grade for a whole paper when they've done all these different standards and techniques doesn't really make sense, and it doesn't tell the student or the family where they're strong and where they might need more work or revision. So here's how I set up my grade book, or online, or in just like a checklist or a notebook that I kind of carry around. I usually have it print this out and put it on a clipboard. So if we're doing a personal or a fiction narrative, I lay out at the top all the different standards and the things that I've actually taught them to do. So you can see there's a deliberate lead, inner thoughts or reflection, dialogue with characterization, a sense of time and place, compound sentence, complex sentence, metaphor, simile, revision process, and then publication using technology and copy edits. These are all related to the standards, which are pretty consistent across every state. And then I have the names of the students. So as I check their drafts, I mark in here for each student. And if I'm not sure, then I might put a question mark or an R for revision. So maybe Julia gets a smiley face across the board. Maybe Peter gets smiley faces except for the dialogue, which he gets a question mark or an R. But this is a way for me to track their entire process and their awareness and ability to meet the different standards. This also shows the student and the families what the student needs to revise or work on if they want to improve their grade or just to learn better. This is a snapshot of my actual grade book. So it looks a little bit different because of the learning management system that we use. But you see a lead, sensory language, dialogue, transitions, colon, interjection, conclusion, figurative language. So I use the code 210. 2 meaning yes, they did it. 1 meaning they still need revisions. A 0 meaning they left it out. I have no evidence, no evidence. Now, here's the thing. The zeros indicate a need for me to either teach them, or they were absent, or they need to revise it, or they need more time, any number of these things, right? So this is helpful to say to the parents or to the student or to my department. For me, the colon, right? The colon is something either I didn't teach well or I didn't give students time to implement. Or it wasn't useful for them. It tells me a lot of different things here, right? So I either need to make another day for everyone to circle back and work on the colons, or I need to remove this and put it on an agenda for another paper, right? So it tells me a few things. It tells me what students can do. It tells me where students need additional revisions. If there's more time and grades aren't due, they're going to revise. If the time's up and I've already given lots of opportunities to revise, maybe this is as good as it gets, right? So students with a lot of 1s might get a C or a D. Students with all 2s are clearly they get an A. So it's still arbitrary, but it's a better way of thinking about grades that are standards informed. All right. So lots about grades, lots to unpack there. If you and your department would like to have a conversation with me about how this might work in your classroom or how you might adapt something, please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, I hope you keep writing.